What happens when Kevin Feige decides he wants to produce a Star Wars movie from a writer of Rick and Morty? Hi all, and welcome to Blue Reviews. I'm CSG, aka Comrade Blue, and today I'm going to be breaking down my thoughts on Marvel Studios' newest edition, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Currently sitting at an IMDb score of 6.6 and a Rotten Tomatoes score of 47% critic to an 82% audience, Quantumania is currently the second lowest critically reviewed MCU film, tied with Eternals. As a fan of the MCU in general, as someone who really likes the characters of Ant-Man and Wasp, and the previous two movies, I had to ask beforehand if the reviews were a little blown out of proportion. However, having seen it now myself, I can genuinely say that things were actually pretty on par. Let's size it up.
You're an interesting man, Scott Lang.
Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is the 31st film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and follows the titular characters as they journey into the quantum realm to stop Kang the Conqueror from escaping with the help of their Ant family, Hank Pym, Janet Van Dyne, and Cassie Lang. From a plot perspective, Quantumania is a pretty standard Marvel movie. Intro new villain and thing that needs to be found, lightly explore some new area, and introduce characters we'll honestly probably never see again, reference a previous movie in the series and Endgame, then wrap things up in a climactic CGI battle. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. Quantumania feels the most bare bones that we've had from Marvel in a while. While movies like Love and Thunder, Wakanda Forever, and Multiverse of Madness have found ways to throw in little twists and feel fresh, Quantumania comes in, sets up stuff for the rest of Phase 5, and just ends. This is made more noticeable by breaking the plot into what is essentially two acts instead of three. First is getting the characters from point A to point B using Janet to relay exposition and build up Kang. Then we actually have Kang come in and carry us through to the climactic end. There's never really a point where our characters can breathe and develop a lot of interpersonal dialogue that really makes the other Marvel movies stand out. In fact, a common theme here is lost time, but beyond some surface level mentions and hand waving of what could essentially be potential issues between characters, there's not much else that's being offered here or explored. Instead, there's a lot more time spent on hit or miss humor here. Many of the jokes didn't land for me and honestly felt like lesser versions of something you get from another MCU movie or Rick and Morty, which Jeff Loveness, the writer of Quantumania, also worked on. The standard MCU shift in tone from serious to jokey is also at some of its worst here, giving me a little bit of a tonal whiplash from time to time. Now, make no mistake, the cast really tries to make you care about the Ant family and their dynamics. Paul Rudd is always a blast to watch as Scott Lang, and Evangeline Lilly continues to bring a more grounded and thoughtful approach to Scott's carefree chaos. Michelle Pfeiffer brings a strong and much needed sense of personality and coolness to her version of Janet, and Michael Douglas is, well, Michael Douglas, but obsessed with ants.
Ants! Ants!
The first of two new additions I wanted to discuss is Catherine Newton as Cassie. I really liked Newton in 2020's Freaky, and I was looking forward to seeing what she did with the character here. Now, while I feel like she had a good first outing, I really want to see more of her emotional range and more of her own acting spin. There are moments where I felt she was trying to embody Abby Fortson's version of the character in order to keep with continuity, but I'm looking forward to her growth in future projects and as she grows more comfortable in the MCU. The real standout here, though, is Jonathan Majors as Kang. Majors has a really foreboding presence that carries throughout the film, and he knows how to display that well. He brings a caliber of calm malice that we haven't gotten from any MCU villain so far, and very easily stole the scenes that he was in. To say I'm looking forward to more of Majors' performance as Kang through the rest of the multiverse storyline is a huge, huge understatement. With that said, I had a few issues with the character of Kang himself. Without delving into spoilers, there are some moments throughout Quantumania where I felt a constant shift in power level, and this, in turn, led to me questioning how much of an actual threat Kang is supposed to be. We've been told he's the big bad of the saga, but I never felt there was anything here to establish him as the next Thanos-level villain. Our other villain, MODOK, is a waste to me. Again, avoiding spoilers, the attempts to connect MODOK to the established MCU canon does him more of a disservice than if we had brought him in a future project or as his own thing. Trying to tie him to Kang in the quantum realm just seemed like a little bit of overkill, and there wasn't anything presented here that really made me feel like his inclusion was 100% justified. Janet also has a very weird arc in general. She's constantly hiding names, information, and important plot points from her family, and it comes across as more of an annoyance than a necessity. Outside of them, the others are fine. They're continuations of characters we've gotten to know and care about over the last 8 years, but it feels like we're rapidly approaching a point where they don't have much to do anymore. This brings us to the visual side of things, and I think that for the most part, Quantumania has a lot of really cool things to showcase. The various aspects and landscapes of the quantum realm stood out on the big screen, and I always love seeing how they'll approach differences in size for Ant-Man movies. This film feels like set piece after set piece visually, and I really enjoyed that. There's a flurry of colors, lighting styles, and camera movements to keep things interesting as well. I do have to make note, though, that there are a handful of moments where the CGI doesn't quite look right or as polished as other projects. We've started to see this more and more throughout the previous phase, and the odd plastic sheen to the CG and noticeable borders when people are seeing against green screen sticks out more when watching this in the theater. A lot of the locales and Quantum Realm residents, while cool, also look like they could fit better in Star Wars, and some in particular look like they were borrowed directly from a galaxy far, far away. And I kind of had to wonder if this was a way for Kevin Feige to showcase what he could do for a Star Wars project of his own. When Kang's soldiers start to remind me of stormtroopers in more ways than one, it feels more intentionally done. All in all, I feel like Quantumania has a lot of pieces that don't really click together in the way that I'd hoped, and I came out of this one feeling pretty underwhelmed. I try not to hype myself up for fear of being disappointed, but after the really clever usage of Ant-Man's powers and heartfelt moments in the previous two movies, it was hard not to look forward to this installment. Pair that with the fact that this is going to introduce Kang and kick off Phase 5, Quantumania started to have a lot riding on it. Don't get me wrong, Quantumania is fine, but that's it. It's just fine. On the current stage of the MCU and as the 31st movie, I don't know if we can continue to get away with just fine anymore. That said, if you're an MCU fan and are invested in where this has been going, Quantumania is pretty par for the course. If you're starting to get Marvel fatigue, though, or have just been checking in here and there for the big ones, you're not really going to miss out on too much. Overall, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is carried by some interesting Star Wars-inspired visualization and a great performance by Jonathan Majors at the cost of its other parts, leaving it to feel more like Ant-Man and a skippable setup for the rest of Phase 5. 6 out of 10. That's it, everyone. Be sure to like and subscribe to the Roguely channel for more Blue reviews and other great content we're sending your way. Thanks for watching, and always remember, go Roguely.